Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into the structure of emotional pain, specifically how we almost build monuments to things that are missing in our lives. It's this really human thing, isn't it? When something big is lost, a relationship ends maybe, or our identity shifts, or someone breaks a promise.
Yeah.
The emptiness that's left feels, well, it feels almost sacred, like we have this rule inside. This space, this void, it's a memorial.
You can't touch it.
Right. Nothing can fill it, nothing should fill it.
That feeling is,
Right.
it's everywhere. And it's a perfect way into what we're discussing. You know, that image you mentioned.
Yeah.
The empty spot on the shelf.
Or the wall, yeah. Where that picture used to be.
Exactly, that sort of ghost rectangle. And you haven't put anything else there. Maybe you don't even want to.
Because it feels disrespectful somehow.
That's the feeling.
Yeah.
Disrespectful to what was there. So
Yeah.
day after day, you walk past it and you reinforce the idea, this is permanent.
This pain is mine, this lack, it defines me.
And I have to carry it, always.
And what's so interesting digging into this is realizing that this loyalty, this guarding of the pain, it makes sense emotionally, but it might be based on a misunderstanding.
A misunderstanding of how our minds actually organize reality.
Yeah, it feels like just a feeling, but you're saying it's more like a structure.
That's absolutely the core idea. Our mission today, really, is to show you, the listener, that this experience isn't wrong exactly,
Okay.
but it might misread the actual structure of perception. If we look at it through, say, the lens of Gestalt psychology,
Right.
we start to see that what you call pain or emptiness isn't really a static hole that needs filling or fixing.
So it's not just missing stuff.
No. We're going to look at the suffering not as an absence, but as a dynamic figure
Yeah.
that your awareness has sort of lifted up,
Yeah.
pulled out from the background of everything else.
Okay, let's unpack that. Gestalt. Figure and ground. It sounds a bit academic, maybe?
It can sound that way, but the basic idea is incredibly intuitive. Gestalt just means form or pattern. It's about how our mind naturally organizes incoming chaos into meaningful shapes, into structures. So think of your awareness right now as like a stage. Something always steps into the spotlight. That's the figure. It's sharp, it's vivid, it grabs your attention.
And everything.
Everything else fades back into the shadows. That's the ground. It's more diffuse, it's the background context.
So if the pain is the figure, vivid, urgent, really grabbing the spotlight,
Prominent.
then maybe the problem isn't the pain itself, but the energy we're using to keep it in the spotlight.
Precisely. That's the shift in perspective. The question isn't, how do I get rid of this pain? How do I cure it?
Right.
The question becomes structural. How is this pain organized in my field of perception? And the really key part, what's stopping it from just receding, fading back?
Because usually things do fade, don't they, if they're not immediately relevant.
Our minds are constantly trying to do that, to dissolve things, let them become background. So why does this particular figure hang on so tight?
But hang on, isn't the goal usually to eliminate pain? If we shouldn't cure it, what are we supposed to do? Keeping a trauma or a loss right there in the foreground? That sounds exhausting.
Oh, it is exhausting. Absolutely. And that exhaustion points us straight to this core Gestalt idea,
Yeah.
the law of unfinished business.
Unfinished business. Okay.
A figure stays in the spotlight because it represents something incomplete, a rupture, a gap between what is and what you feel should be.
Like an apology that never happened.
Exactly. Or a goal you were working towards that got completely derailed. Or a loss that felt too sudden, too unresolved. The situation demands closure, but closure isn't available.
So the mind just keeps circling back, using up enormous amounts of energy trying to close that loop, that gestalt.
Yes. It becomes obsessed with finding resolution. It's like having, 50 browser tabs open in your head, and one of them is this blinking, urgent thing you can't close.
That's a great analogy.
It's the ultimate energy drain. Think about those moments, we've all done it, after a really bad breakup or a betrayal. You find yourself going back to that old text thread, not just reading the words, but like analyzing the punctuation,
Checking the timestamp.
rehearsing conversations that never happened, arguments you wish you'd had.
Trying to find that one thing that would make it make sense.
Exactly. Your mind isn't doing that just to make you suffer more. It's desperately searching for the missing piece to finish the pattern, to close the story.
Okay. But what happens when real closure just isn't possible? The person's gone, the past is locked.
Then the figure, it can't dissolve. The mind hasn't marked it resolved, so it can't file it away into the background.
So it stays.
It becomes what we might call permanent foreground. It sets up camp right there on the stage. It becomes this monument to incompleteness, always demanding attention.
It stops being a process, like grief, and becomes an object.
A static object. A shrine to what can't be fixed, but which we feel this deep, almost moral obligation to keep guarding.
Right, and this really explains why that standard advice, just let it go, time to move on, why it often feels so wrong.
Dismissive, even.
Yeah, or like you're being blamed for not being over it yet. It almost makes you want to cling tighter.
And that clinging is so important to understand, because here's where it gets, I think, really fascinating.
Okay.
You're generally not clinging to the suffering itself, the raw feeling of sadness or anger.
What are we clinging to then?
You're clinging to the meaning that the pain represents. You're afraid that if you let the pain recede, if it stops being figured...
You're erasing the importance of whatever happened.
Yes. You're betraying it. You're saying it didn't matter.
Or we're trying to preserve the evidence, almost. Like holding on to the proof that the love was real.
Or the future that was promised was real, even if it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Or that the version of you that existed back then, that person mattered.
Wow. So letting the pain fade feels like saying, okay, that whole chapter, insignificant.
That person, that dream, that identity, I'm over it. And that feels like the absolute worst kind of betrayal. So what do? We keep the wound in the spotlight.
We polish it. We revisit it.
And often unconsciously, we start to build our identity around its structure. I am the one who was left. I am the survivor of that event.
So we take this living, shifting, messy thing, grief, change, healing, and we try to freeze it, make it into a static thing, like a medal we carry, or a scar we keep showing.
A badge of honor sometimes.
Yeah.
We refuse to accept that the internal story might actually be changing, evolving.
That's the trap, then.
That is the trap. But here's the other side of it, the second big insight, and this one. This one offers real hope, I think, without demanding you force anything.
Okay, I'm listening.
The pain cannot actually be frozen. It just can't. Even when you swear, I feel the exact same agony I felt 5 years ago. Even when you insist nothing has shifted.
It has.
It's already transforming. It has to be. Because perception itself is inherently dynamic.
Yeah.
Consciousness is fluid. It's always moving.
But how does that square with people genuinely reporting, decades later, feeling that same intense spike of grief or trauma? It feels permanent to them.
Right. But the feeling of permanence often comes from the immense psychic energy being used to keep that figure fixed in the spotlight. It's not proof the figure itself is inherently static.
Oh, okay.
Think about it physiologically even. No single figure can stay absolutely dominant forever without completely exhausting the perceiver.
Yeah.
Your mind, your brain, simply cannot sustain that level of intense focus indefinitely.
So something is changing, even if we don't consciously register it.
What changes, it might not be the core memory, the object itself, but the relationship of that object to the entire background field. Its position, its intensity relative to everything else.
That reminds me of, those kaleidoscopes?
Mhm.
You can hold it perfectly still, trying to freeze that one beautiful pattern you saw, and it looks fixed, right?
Aroma, yeah.
But if you really look, the little colored bits inside, they're already settling, shifting slightly, reorganizing just because of gravity or the light changing. The field is moving, even if your hand isn't.
That's a perfect analogy.
And maybe we're afraid to shift our grip even a tiny bit, because we're scared we'll lose that specific pattern, that trace of what we're trying to hold on to.
And that tiny shift, that subtle movement in the field, that connects directly to this concept called isomorphism.
Okay, another technical term.
Sounds complex, but again, the idea is simple. Isomorphism just means that the structure in your mind tends to mirror the structure in your environment. Your inner reality reflects the organizational patterns of your outer reality.
Wait, that's a huge idea. You're saying the pain isn't just in me, like inside my head.
Not solely, no. It exists more in the relationship between you, the perceiver, and your environment, the field.
So the pain isn't a thing, like a substance in my brain.
It's more like a structured relationship, a pattern formed between the figure, the pain memory, the loss, and the ground, everything else in your life.
Okay.
Give me an example.
Okay, imagine someone is grieving a major loss. If they stay in the exact same house, keep the exact same daily routines, talk only to the same people who knew the situation, the field structure is stable, very stable.
Right. And so the figure of the pain tends to remain stable and intense too, because the context holding it is unchanged.
But if they move house, or take a completely different job, or even just pick up a totally absorbing new hobby,
drastically change the structure of their outer environment, then the entire field starts to reorganize.
Ah. So it's not that the new hobby is just a distraction that helps you forget for a bit.
It's not primarily distraction, no. It's that introducing a significant new structure into your external life forces a corresponding structural reorganization internally. The pattern has to shift.
Like changing the shape of a room changes how sound bounces around.
Exactly. Change the acoustics of the concert hall, the physical field and the sound waves, the internal experience must change. So if you change your life structure, the pain figure often starts to soften, to recede slightly.
Not because you willed it away or forgot.
But because the foundational structure that was keeping it rigidly in the foreground has shifted. It has less to hold on to, perceptually speaking.
Okay, this changes the whole task then, doesn't it? It's not about trying to plug the hole or fill the gap.
Yeah.
It's about restructuring the entire landscape.
That's the intellectual shift. That's the intervention, if you like, that we want you, the listener, to maybe play with. Stop trying to fill it, fix it, or force the pain to mean one specific unchanging thing. Instead, just watch it. Approach the structure of your own suffering with a kind of genuine, maybe even intellectual curiosity. See it as a perceptual event happening in a field.
Not as a personal tragedy you own forever.
Exactly. See it as a pattern in motion, rather than a permanent defining trait.
And that brings us back to the cost, doesn't it? What's the active cost of keeping that monument standing, keeping that figure locked in place?
The cost is everything else. Everything you are constantly, actively pushing down into the ground to make space for the pain figure.
So the question to ask is,
ask yourself, what part of my life right now, what potential joy, what new curiosity, what relationship, what simple pleasure is being consistently neglected, demoted, suppressed? Because this one figure is dominating the entire foreground.
wow, you're essentially assigning all your perceptual priority, all your attention budget to the absence.
Which means you are systematically, structurally ignoring the presence of everything else that is actually there.
And the hopeful part of the Gestalt view is that the field wants to reorganize, that it will eventually.
It will reorganize. Even if that original wound, that specific injustice or loss, can never be perfectly closed or resolved in the way you initially wanted.
The original Gestalt might remain technically unfinished.
But the overall configuration can still change. The pain doesn't need to be filled or fixed. It needs to be allowed to reconfigure within the larger landscape of your life.
And how does that happen? Does it take effort?
Often, the most profound transformation happens simply through awareness, through noticing how the structure is already shifting, even subtly. It doesn't always require massive willpower or heroic effort.
This noticing?
Noticing allows the figure to gradually lose its sharp edges, its urgency. It starts to devolve back into the vast ground.
Where it gets metabolized, reabsorbed.
Yes, exactly. It stops being your pain, this distinct, screaming thing you carry, and becomes simply part of your landscape, like a scar on the terrain, as you said.
It's still there. It informs the landscape.
But it doesn't define the entire view. It whispers from the edges sometimes, maybe. I'm still part of this story.
But I'm not the whole story. I'm not what I was.
And neither are you.
That's integration. That's survival becoming structure.
Beautifully put, yeah.
So bringing this all together, what does this mean for us just trying to live through these big ruptures, these losses, that deep fear we have that if we start feeling the pain so acutely, we're somehow dishonoring what we lost?
That fear is powerful, but it's based on this illusion of ownership, this idea that pain is an object you possess and must guard.
And maybe sometimes we're mourning a ghost. Not the original loss, but the pain we think we should still be feeling.
Yes, we spend energy maintaining the feeling we believe is appropriate long after the internal structure has already begun its inevitable, natural shift.
And recognizing that, that's liberating.
It's the point of liberation, because moving on or allowing the configuration to change isn't erasure, it's integration.
The structure has transformed anyway, whether we consciously allowed it or not.
The field reconfigured itself.
Yeah.
And that you, from back then, the one who swore this pain would never ever change. That version of you is, structurally speaking, gone.
Replaced by the version who has somehow already survived it, already incorporated it.
You didn't heal by plugging a void. You transformed because the entire system, your perceptual field, reconfigured itself around the presence of that missing piece, that unresolved story.
So the next time you notice that feeling, that empty frame on the wall pulling at your attention, that monument you feel you have to keep guarding,
don't ask, what can I put here to cover this awful gap?
ask instead.
Ask instead, What if this frame isn't just a placeholder for loss? What if it's actually a window?
A window.
A portal, a potential opening to a completely new configuration of meaning, a new way of seeing the whole landscape. You won't feel the pain because it doesn't want filling. It never did.
It just wanted to be seen.
Seen as a shape in motion,
Huh.
allowed eventually to dissolve back into the field where it can become part of something else entirely. And that shift in seeing, that intellectual curiosity towards your own structure, that's the beginning of everything new.